The reflection looking back at you is not someone you were born as. You know this. You have always known this. The voice, low, deliberate, calibrated somewhere between a register and a performance, isn't the voice you had at 19. The black turtleneck, the unwavering eye contact, the way you hold a room like it owes you something. None of this arrived fully formed. You built it, piece by piece, the way you told everyone you were building everything else. It is the morning of October 15th, 2015. You're 31 years old. Theranos is valued at $9 billion. Your personal stake puts you at $4.5 billion. The cover of Fortune, the cover of Forbes, the youngest self-made female billionaire in American history. They said, and you said nothing to correct them because the label felt like armor and you needed armor today. A reporter named John Carreiro has been calling. You stand at the mirror in your office on Page Mill Road in Palo Alto, California. The fluorescent light catches the jawline you set like a foundation every morning. The eyes, pale blue, unblinking. You have stood in front of Henry Kissinger. You have briefed George Shultz and James Mattis and William Perry and senators and Defense Department officials who needed to believe that a finger prick of blood could tell a soldier on the battlefield whether he'd been exposed to a nerve agent. You have stood on the TED stage. You have stood in the Steve Jobs tradition. The black turtleneck is not incidental. It is intentional, a garment that says, I've already simplified everything down to this. The phone is ringing. You study your reflection for one more second. You don't pick it up, because to understand what that ringing phone means, what is about to detonate across the next 7 years of your life, you have to go back, all the way back, to a 19-year-old girl in Palo Alto who looked at the established order of things and decided, with a certainty that never entirely left her, that the rules simply did not apply. It is 2003. You are a sophomore at Stanford University in the chemical engineering program, and you're bored. Not bored the way other students are bored. Restless, checking the clock, waiting for a lecture to end. You are bored the way a person is bored when they believe they are operating several tiers above the room they're sitting in. Stanford is the best, and still it is not fast enough for what you see. You have read about Steve Jobs the way other people read sacred texts, the dropout mythology, the turtleneck as uniform, the reality distortion field, that documented capacity to make collaborators believe things that were not yet true simply by wanting them with sufficient intensity. You are not an admirer from a distance. You are a student of the method. Your father worked at Enron before it collapsed. You watched from the periphery as trust evaporated, as the gap between what a company claimed and what it actually held inside became visible all at once. You file that away. Your idea, a small portable device that can run hundreds of blood tests from a single finger prick, painlessly, cheaply, without the cold fluorescent corridors of a conventional lab, results in minutes, not days. Medicine democratized. The technology will be called Edison, after the man who described invention as 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. The idea is visionary. The idea is also, at this particular moment in 2003, physically impossible. You don't know that yet, or you don't allow yourself to know it. That distinction between genuine ignorance and careful, willful blindness will occupy a federal jury for 11 weeks in 2021. But in a student apartment in Palo Alto in the spring of 2003, the idea feels like a calling. You drop out of Stanford. Your tuition money, your parents' tuition money, becomes the first capital of Theranos, the company you name from the portmanteau of therapy and diagnosis. Your professor, Channing Robertson, calls you the most gifted student he has encountered in 34 years of teaching chemical engineering. That will matter later, in ways you cannot yet calculate. You're 19 years old, and you're starting a revolution. But you don't know it yet. The thing you are building will not save anyone. The thing you are building will eventually send false diagnoses into the bodies of strangers who trusted a black box with your name on it. And somewhere further down the road, you will know that, and you will keep dialing anyway. The early years are lean and strange, and full of brilliant people who believe what you tell them. By 2004 and 2005, you are raising capital. Not easily. Deep in the labs, The engineers are telling you what you already sense but cannot say out loud. The device doesn't work the way you described it. The chemistry is too complex. A finger prick yields too little blood. The results are inconsistent in ways that aren't rounding errors. They're structural problems, the kind that don't disappear when you push harder. The gap between the promise and the product is not a month behind schedule. It is something more fundamental. But here is what you have absorbed from jobs, from the mythology of the valley, from every story of a product that didn't exist until its inventor demanded that it exist. The technology doesn't have to be real yet. It has to be real enough for the room. The investor presentation doesn't need to show what the machine does today. It needs to show what the machine will do, must do, because you will it. Silicon Valley has a phrase for this: fake it till you make it. You call it vision. By 2010, you have raised $92 million. You have assembled a board of directors that looks less like a startup advisory group and more like a cabinet. George Shultz, Secretary of State under Reagan. Henry Kissinger, Secretary of State under Nixon and Ford. William Perry, Secretary of Defense under Clinton. James Mattis, former four-star general who will eventually become Secretary of Defense himself. None of them are scientists. None of them have the specific technical expertise to ask the questions that would crack the foundation. And that, you'll understand only much later from a great distance, is the worst thing that could have happened to you or to anyone who ever gave Theranos their blood. Walgreens calls in 2010. You have been pitching. The pitch is immaculate. You have perfected it in hotel conference rooms across California and in boardrooms across the country. And somewhere in the years of delivery, you stopped experiencing it as a pitch and began experiencing it as testimony. This is what you believe. The mission is real. The technology will be real. The gap is temporary. The pitch goes like this. Theranos has developed a proprietary analyzer, the Edison, capable of running over 240 blood tests from a single small sample, faster and cheaper than any conventional laboratory in existence. The technology is validated. The results are accurate. The future of medicine is here in this black box, and all you need is a partner willing to put it in front of real patients. Walgreens signs, Safeway signs. Theranos Wellness Centers will open inside Walgreens stores, beginning in Arizona. Real patients, real blood draws, real results transmitted to real physicians who will make real clinical decisions about real human lives. Here's what you know. Here's what you do not say. The Edison machine cannot reliably run the majority of those tests. The results it generates on its own are too variable to stake a medical decision on. So when patients walk into those Walgreens locations and give their blood, many of the samples are being processed on third-party Siemens analyzers, conventional laboratory machines that Theranos has purchased and operates. And the results are sometimes being run multiple times to account for inconsistency, then diluted for the smaller sample volume, then printed on Theranos letterhead and transmitted to physicians as if they came from your proprietary technology. The physicians don't know what's inside the black box. The patients don't know. You tell yourself it's temporary. The technology will catch up. You are racing toward a future that will justify all of this, that the mission is real even if the machine isn't ready, that patients are still receiving results and results are what matter, that this is all just the bridge between where you are and where you're going. You signed the agreement. You know, you sign it anyway. There's a line in the world, and you have just walked across it, and the name for what lies on the other side is fraud. You don't use that word. You never use that word. In your internal language, the only word is vision. By 2013, Theranos is more than a company. It is a story. Fortune puts you on the cover in June 2014. The turtleneck, the jawline you have practiced setting, the stare that says, "I've already solved the thing you haven't yet thought to question." The headline reads, "This CEO is out for blood." By late 2014, Forbes values Theranos at $9 billion. Your personal stake, $4.5 billion. The youngest self-made female billionaire in American history, the magazine declares, and every word of that phrase is technically accurate and substantively built on a structure that has no verified weight-bearing capacity. You're giving TED Talks. You're accepting awards. The deliberate baritone, cultivated over years, dropped an octave or more below where your voice naturally sits, fills lecture halls. You have written yourself into the mythology of Silicon Valley while the Valley is still writing the chapter, because the Valley wants you to be real. A woman founder disrupting a calcified industry. A visionary who dropped out at 19. The press wants the story too much to press hard enough to find the floor. Inside the building, it is a different country. Inside the building, the engineers know. Some of them have known for years. They leave steadily in ones and twos, signed in non-disclosure agreements so restrictive that leaving quietly already feels like a legal exposure. The culture has become surveillance. Questions about accuracy are managed as questions about loyalty. And Sunny Balwani, Ramesh Sunny Balwani, your partner and company president, enforces that culture with a systematic coldness that converts concern into compliance. Sleep has become a thing you negotiate. For hours, sometimes less. Green juice and a certainty that has changed texture over the years, that no longer feels like confidence and has started to feel like its own kind of prison. The obligation to believe, because if you stop believing for even one press interview, one board meeting, one investor call, the whole construction reads differently. Your phone doesn't stop. Investors, partners, board members, journalists requesting access. One journalist you're not calling back. John Carreyrou of the Wall Street Journal has been making inquiries for months. Someone inside has been talking to him. Someone who left, or someone who is still there, but who has started writing things down. You don't know the source yet, but you can feel the investigation the way you can feel a change in air pressure before a storm, a heaviness, a stillness that is not rest. Every dollar coming in is building a time bomb. You know this. The clock is running on something you cannot stop. You keep dialing. George Shultz's grandson works for you. Tyler Shultz joined Theranos in 2013. 22 years old, his grandfather's name a credential that got him through the door and into a lab where he ran proficiency tests, comparing Theranos test results against parallel results from established external laboratories. The numbers didn't match. He escalated internally. What came back was not a correction or a scientific engagement with the discrepancy. What came back was a conversation about discretion, about the difference between identifying a technical problem and taking that problem outside the building, about loyalty to a mission that was bigger than any single data point. Tyler Shultz leaves Theranos in April 2014. He begins speaking with Carreyrou. Before he does, he calls his grandfather. He tells George Shultz what he found in the lab. The former Secretary of State, 89 years old, his name on the board of this company, his credibility attached to every Theranos press release. He listens. He does not break with you. Not yet. But the crack exists now. In the fall of 2015, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services conduct an inspection of your Newark, California laboratory. What the federal inspectors document inside that facility is not a cutting-edge diagnostics operation. What they document are serious deficiencies, practices and conditions that they will later describe in the precise regulatory language that leaves no interpretive room, as posing immediate jeopardy to the health and safety of patients. They are not technology critics. They are not short sellers or disgruntled former employees. They are federal regulators, and they are writing everything down on government paper with government timestamps. You have stopped thinking of it as fraud. That is the part that no one who hasn't lived inside a long deception fully understands. The language changes. The internal architecture of justification becomes so elaborate, so load-bearing, so woven into the daily operations of the company and the daily operations of your own thinking that you cannot remove any single piece without threatening the whole structure. So you stop calling it a lie. You call it mission. You call it the inevitable friction between where the technology is and where it's going. You call it the cost of changing the world before the world is ready to be changed. The CMS inspectors complete their initial report in November 2015. By then, the Wall Street Journal has already published. October 15th, 2015. The story runs under John Carreyrou's byline, and it is not a profile. It is a detonation. Hot startup Theranos has struggled with its blood test technology. One word, struggled, and $9 billion begins to unmake itself. The story cites former employees. It cites accuracy concerns with the Edison device. It reports that Theranos has been running the substantial majority of its tests not on its proprietary analyzer, but on Siemens laboratory machines, and that some Edison results were being internally flagged for reliability concerns before going to patients. You don't go quiet. You go loud. You respond the same day. You call the reporting false. Days later, you appear on CNBC and you sit across from Jim Cramer in the deliberate voice, the calibrated stillness, and you say that what Kuriru has written is the work of someone who doesn't understand what you are building. The technology is validated. The mission is real. The company is going to be fine. The board is with you. For now. But Tyler Schultz has filed a complaint with the New York State Department of Health. The CMS inspectors are filing their final report. Kuriru is still reporting. In January 2016, Walgreens freezes the expansion of Theranos Wellness Centers while it assesses the findings. In March 2016, CMS publishes its determination. The agency is proposing to ban Elizabeth Holmes from owning or operating clinical laboratories for a period of 2 years, and to revoke Theranos Federal Laboratory certification entirely. In the dry, bureaucratic language of a regulatory finding, the document describes a laboratory that posed immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. Immediate jeopardy. The patients in Arizona received those results. Results from a device that was not performing the way the partnership agreement said it was performing. Some received false readings on panels they were monitoring for serious conditions. Physicians made clinical decisions based on numbers that came out of a process that did not match the description on the letterhead. They trusted the blood. In June 2016, Walgreens terminates its partnership and files suit against Theranos for $140 million. Safeway has already walked. The $9 billion valuation is not evaporating. It is collapsing, the way a building collapses when you pull the single structural element that everything else was resting on. You issue statements. You announce a new miniaturized device, the Mini Lab. You keep showing up at conferences. You keep speaking in the voice. But the rooms are quieter now, and the people in them are watching you with a different posture than they had before. Not awe, something that hasn't fully become suspicion yet, but is no longer far from it. The Department of Justice has opened an investigation. The Securities and Exchange Commission is examining your investor disclosures. On some nights you lie in the dark and listen to your own breathing, and you try to locate the original signal. The 19-year-old girl who dropped out with a vision that felt like a calling, and you cannot find a clean line between her and this. Between the idea and the execution of the idea. Between the dream and what you did to keep the dream funded. The FBI is not yet at your door, but the distance is closing. The indictment is filed on June 15th, 2018. You're 34 years old. The charges: wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud against investors, conspiracy to commit wire fraud against patients. The document is 68 pages, and it is the architecture of the whole construction rendered in federal prose. The representations made to investors that Theranos technology was validated and deployed when it was not. The test results transmitted to physicians and patients that were, in the language of the indictment, unreliable and inaccurate. Elizabeth and Holmes, you plead not guilty. The trial begins on August 31st, 2021, in San Jose Federal Court, and it lasts 11 weeks. You testify in your own defense. On the stand, the deliberate baritone is quieter, less calibrated, more uneven at its edges. You describe a company operating in good faith toward a vision that was real. You describe Sunny Balwani as a presence that shaped decisions and suppressed your own judgment in ways the jury will have to weigh against the documented record and the testimony of 11 former employees. It is the most important performance of your life, and you are performing it inside a courtroom, which means the audience includes 12 people who are not there to be inspired. On January 3rd, 2022, the jury returns its verdict. Guilty on 4 counts. 3 counts of wire fraud against investors. 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud against investors. Not guilty on the counts related to patient fraud. The acquittal on the patient charges is its own verdict on what the legal system can and cannot reach when the harm is dispersed across thousands of strangers who trusted a diagnosis they had no way to verify, made by a machine they had no way to see inside. Sunny Balwani is convicted separately on all 12 counts in July 2022. He is sentenced in December 2022 to 12 years and 11 months in federal prison. On November 18, 2022, Judge Edward Davila sentences Elizabeth and Holmes to 11 years and 3 months in a federal correctional facility. On May 30th, 2023, you report to FCI Bryan and Bryan, Texas. You are 39 years old. Theranos, the company you built from your parents' tuition money and a vision you willed into existence through sheer force of constructive personality, is dissolved. The $9 billion valuation erased. The partnerships with Walgreens and Safeway terminated. The board of former secretaries of state and four-star generals dispersed. The Edison machine, the device that was going to democratize medicine, that was going to let a soldier on a battlefield know in minutes what a hospital lab would take days to determine, decommissioned. The patients in Arizona still exist. They received their results. Some adjusted their medications. Some called their families. Some didn't sleep for nights. They trusted the blood. There's a photograph taken in 2014. You're on the cover of Fortune magazine. The turtleneck, the jawline set like a declaration. The stare. The headline reads, "This CEO is out for blood." You didn't write it, but you didn't refuse it either. The photograph was taken in a studio with controlled lighting, and you had practiced the expression, the one that says, "I've already seen the future," and you haven't, and by the time you catch up, I will have changed it. In FCI Bryan, there are no photographers. There is fluorescent light, and a number that isn't 4.5 billion, and a bunk, and all the years ahead of you to spend inside the question that nobody who watched you command those rooms ever thought to ask. The black turtleneck is gone. The deep voice is gone. The 9 billion is gone. The only thing in that 2014 photograph that turned out to be true is the headline.